Hi everybody, I wanted to welcome you all to this webinar. This will be our first webinar here in August, and this time around we have a guest lecturer here. So Tracy Dice will be presenting this webinar on quality matters. We're going to cover an overview of what that entails. Tracy, for bad form, I'll just read what's on Tracy's bio because I think it's a good bio. So she's an instructional designer. She's one of the lead instructional designers at TCS Education System. She works collaboratively with subject matter experts and department chairs to build engaging online courses for TCS Ed System affiliates. She's been in training and online courses for over 18 years, and right now she's in Central Ohio with her teenage daughter who looks just like her, and the two cats who I assume they don't. I've never actually seen her cats, but I assume that they don't look like her. But her daughter is a mini her, and so Tracy handles a lot of the quality assurance. She oversees quality matters, and she's a great expert in this area. And so I'll give the time over to you now, Tracy.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, the cats don't look like me. I was going to put a picture of my daughter and I here, but I never seem to have my hair combed right. Well, I can't comb my hair, but it's never styled properly when I'm in pictures with her for some reason. So welcome, everybody. I want to talk to you today about quality matters. TCS PP has been using quality matters for quite some time. This is a program that I became acquainted with in a former position, and I suggested when I came here as an instructional designer. Quality Matters is a consortium. It started off as a not-for-profit consortium of people concerned about quality online courses. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to create, and they did create, a faculty-centered peer review process where you'd work with the faculty and the faculty's peers would work with them to make a course a quality course. It certifies the quality of the online courses, and it is the leader in quality assurance for online education. So they have several conferences throughout the year in different regions, and they have pretty much created the gold standard for evaluating online and blended courses. And so community colleges, liberal arts colleges, universities, and other non-traditional online institutions and boards of higher ed across the country are subscribing to this program to supplement their quality assurance efforts, because in addition to quality matters, we have some other requirements of our own, but using quality matters helps to improve the quality and the effectiveness in our online distance learning programs. Okay. So let's move to the next slide. The primary components of quality matters are the quality matters rubric. I would say that this is the soup and nuts of the whole operation, because these are the standards in which online courses are judged by. And we're going to go through each of the standards later on in the presentation. There's also a peer review process that takes place at your school level. So someone like me, who is a lead for quality matters, a department chair, and maybe other faculty, will participate in an online review of your course, or any course for that matter, and see if it meets these standards. Our designers, we design with quality matters in mind, so some of these things we are already meeting right out the bat in Canvas, which is excellent. And Sean, I'm hearing some background noise. I'm not sure what that is. And then we have professional development, which is also available through Quality Matters. They have additional courses and things that can help us improve our evaluations of said online courses. And you can find more things at their website. I've given sources as to the QM program where you can find information. Now, the rubric, I will say, is not publicly available or the annotations, because they've got that locked down for subscription people. It used to be that they had those open and available, but now they're only for subscribers. So say your institution subscribes to Quality Matters, then you would have access to these documents. People often want to know, what's in it for me? How can I make my course better by using Quality Matters? And two of the biggest benefits of Quality Matters is that you improve your student learning outcomes and retention. Basically, that means that your program is providing coursework and courses that meet the institutional and the program outcomes. And we're going to talk about the importance about those things later on in the presentation. And when students are learning what they're supposed to learn, and it's clear what they're supposed to learn, and the courses are quality courses where the information is current, clear, and accurately measures students, you'll see that more students complete their programs. It also provides a quality assurance process that is consistent and systematic. A lot of institutions don't really have a standardized way of making sure that their courses meet certain standards, and this kind of does a lot of the homework for you. Also, the great thing about Quality Matters for us is, we are meeting a lot of the standards at TCS Ed System, but often we have to embrace new technology, such as things for the disabled or the people who learn differently. So it helps us to reach out and find out what are new things that we could do to make our text easier to read for people with a vision impairment, provide text as we do things with video for the hearing impaired, and then finding different ways for people to be assessed based on their learning style. So it's not really just about being disabled, but the technology helps us to engage students as well. And so all of these are really important Quality Matters benefits. It also benchmarks us, when we get Quality Matters certification, some schools have submitted a very, very large amount of their courses so that they could say they're QM certified. So it kind of lets you know where you stand with your peers as far as how are our courses doing when compared to how other institutions are doing when it comes to the quality of their courses. And it really does encourage creativity and faculty development. As an instructional designer, I've had to learn a lot of different software to really up the ante on our programs and make sure that they're not simply text on the screen. It also helps faculty learn how to do new things and provide, a bit of creativity when it comes to building courses. More often than not, we're dealing with faculty when we're designing online courses, and so it helps for them to know the standards as well, so they can help us think outside the box to make sure that we meet them. Sean, should I stop for questions in between slides, or should I wait to the end?
It's up to you. Nothing's come up yet. I did put a note in the chat. If you have any questions anytime, go ahead and you can type the questions out in the question thing, or just put a comment in the chat window, and I'll be curating these throughout the webinar.
Yeah, because I'm all about interacting with my audience. So if you guys have questions, I wouldn't want to move on. I'd like to answer them within the time where we are, so that we can we won't have to scroll back, that you would get your questions answered in a timely manner.
You can also raise your hand and go to webinar, and then I can unmute you if you want access to the microphone. If you want to ask Tracy a question using your voice instead of typing it out, then feel free to do that as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sean. So the QM rubric, if you're familiar with rubrics, and we all pretty much are as being educational professionals, they're standards that a student has to meet. And so we look at our courses like the standards that they're the student and the course has to meet. So it looks at course overviews and introduction, learning outcomes. They call them learning objectives. At TCSPP, they call them outcomes. Different institutions will call them different things, but we often suggest that we kind of keep the nomenclature consistent across the systems. Instructional assessment and measurement, instructional materials, learner activities and learner interaction, course technology, learner support and accountability, and usability. And within these general standards, there are specific standards that are broke down. If it's worth 3 points, it's absolutely required by Quality Matters to be there. If it's 2 points, it's one of those things that's nice to have. And if it's worth 1 point, it's optional. But at the end of the day, in order for a course to be designated a quality course, it has to have 85% of these points to be considered quality. So that's something you want to remember. You know, we really want to hit on the ones that are worth 3 points. We definitely want to be moving towards or already have the ones that are worth 2 points. And the ones that are worth 1 point are also very valuable, worth looking into. And if it's possible, you know, we would be able to put that in the course as well. That would be ideal. So what happens is that someone's given this rubric who is qualified to do these types of reviews through the QM Professional Development Program, and then they will step through and see whether or not you meet the standards. I want to give you some details about the standards, okay? That talks about, that talks specifically about what each one of these does. So when you're in Quality Matters and we're looking at the course overview and introduction, we want to make sure students that are they're introduced to course contents, that they know where to find things and get help, that they're aware of technology requirements, school policies and procedures, and that they're introduced to their professor. So those are some key things that Quality Matters looks for in the course overviews and introductions. Now, the learning outcomes, you must know that alignment, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, is unique to a lot of these things, such as learning outcomes, assessment and measurement, instructional materials, learner activities. Those are all ones on that right side of the circle that are definitely have alignment components. And we're going to talk about alignment in just a bit, but it's the first one being the learning outcomes. So we want to make sure that the learning outcomes are aligned to the institutional and program and course outcomes for the course. So ideally, a course should have institutional learning outcome, a program learning outcome, a course learning outcome, and then a module or a unit learning outcome for that particular unit of work. And they all should, the module should roll up into the course, up into the program, and then up into the institutional outcomes. So that's one of the things that we really, that's one of the biggest things, and it's very unique to Quality Matters, is this matter of alignment. They're probably the first people that took a look at that type of thing. And so what we're going to make sure of when we are evaluating this course, and when I came to TCSES a number of years ago, some programs had outcomes, some programs did not. But we want to make sure that they're measurable and clear. We want to make sure that they're consistent with alignment across the board. And we also want to make sure that they're at the right level, because there are bachelor's learning outcomes, master's learning outcomes, and doctoral learning outcomes. And we want to make sure that the course is teaching at the level in which the student needs to be taught. So that's a really, really, I can't emphasize that more, big thing with Quality Matters. Another thing that's really important and also is tied into alignment is assessment and measurement. A lot of times people think assessment and measurement are just quizzes and exams, and that's not true. A student can be assessed and graded in many different ways, such as synchronous sessions where they present information to their peers or talk with their professor, papers and research projects and other presentations and the like, videos that someone does, and any type of media recording, or maybe even some type of, in one of Sean's class, they actually had to draw a diagram of the brain and its components. So there's a lot of different ways that a student can be measured. But what we want to make sure is that the assignments roll back up into the outcomes, because often people design courses with all of the assignments in mind, and then they kind of have to like put the square peg in the round hole by finding a way to get them to work with the outcomes that the course is supposed to teach. We kind of do this from a top-down method when it comes to quality matters and best practices for course design. That we want to generate all of the assignments from the course level and their aligned module level outcomes. So if you know a module level outcome is write a paper about the color blue, then there'll be an assignment in there that says write a paper about the color blue. That's about as basic as I can probably make it. We also want to know if the grading policies are present and clear, and that really has to do with rubrics. So does the student have a rubric to know exactly what they need to do to succeed and with the assignment? Often students will come to me. I used to be an English professor for the city colleges of Chicago. I used to teach online for them for a number of years, and they would be like, how can I get an A in this class? And my thing is, well, maybe we should look at how can you do well. And these are all the things in this column that if you turn in your assignment, are going to indicate that you're going to do well on this assignment, and your grade will reflect that. So we want to make sure that students' grading policies and when they're going to, you know, get feedback, all of that information, and how and when are they going to be assessed? Are they going to be assessed during discussion boards? What days of the week are those due? What days of the week are writing assignments or any other big presentation or projects, or their TK20 or portfolio assignments? All that is encompassed in measurement and assessment, where students are really clear about how they'll be measured in a course. And then this is a big one, and a lot of people don't think about this, and this is something that when I'm reviewing a course map for an online course, that's one thing I key in on, is the instructional materials. I will always let a professor know, say for example, they've given me a textbook that was written in 2008. But if there's a 2017 textbook available, I'll make the professor aware of it, and that will probably change the page numbers. That the pagination is one of the things that usually changes, because there could be lots. I used to get a different textbook from my course that I taught like every other year, and every time it was something great and better that I could use for my students, especially in areas of technology. So when we're talking about education or psychology or nursing or anything like that, there's always going to be new breakthroughs. There's always going to be new editions of textbooks. There's always going to be new YouTube videos, new journal articles. You know, there's one journal article, it's Unpacking the Knapsack, and it's something that is it's a great article that's like probably my age. And that's probably the one article that I know that hasn't been really revised in a very long time. And one of our affiliates uses it a lot. But other than that, it's really important that you're using instructional materials. And we're not just talking about books here. Like I said, I mentioned videos, other PDFs, any resource. Having links that aren't broken in courses, those are really important. And then learning activity, and they have to be aligned to the assignment, of course, the instructional materials. You just can't have someone reading something for the sake of reading it. So that's also where alignment comes in. And the learner activities and interaction, you know, we're going to look at, you know, how well does this course engage students? And do the activities that we've assigned them align with the outcomes? Is it active learning, or is it just packs of text on the screen for them to read? And do we know when the instructor is going to turn papers back? We already found out from assessment measurement when the assignments are due, but does the instructor have something in the course that says when they're going to grade papers, when they're going to get back to them? Does the program have a standard about feedback? So that's really important. And, you know, interaction requirements, because these are online courses, and it used to be that the big push in online education was, hey, you know, you can take this course when you want to, where you want to. But now, especially because people like a lot of engagement, and we're all social animals, most of us, they talk about, you know, hey, this is when we're all going to meet online, so you've got to be available. Or this is when your professor has their office hours online, so this is the times in which you can reach them. Letting them know how many times a week do I need to sign into the course so that you can take my attendance and see that I've been in there working? And all of our systems, you know, our system Canvas does it. The systems we've used previously to this, where we can go in and see when the student has been in the system. So that's important. Okay, so then we move on to course technology. You know, we want to make sure that we're not just putting things in there for the bells and whistles. So if we put a self-check in there that's clickable by the student and it's SCORM, so it's reportable to the gradebook, that it is the questions within that clickable interaction aligned to the outcomes for the module. So that's very, very important. And that's another place where we look at active learning and engagement. You know, does a student feel like they're part of a community of learners, or are they just reading text on a screen? And you know, when you're first starting out and doing online courses, text on the screen is usually what happens, and that's okay for a minute, but then we want to move on and we want to add technology that makes the student feel like they are right there in the classroom, and that takes planning and additional time when you're working with instructional design. And so we also need to know, is the technology in the course easily available? It used to be a time when somebody gave you a PDF, it was like, oh my God, how am I going to read this? But now we know that PDFs are readily available. Adobe Reader is free. We can use it, or audio. Most back in the day, I'm sure a lot of you can remember, people didn't have webcams, people didn't have microphones. You know, you were lucky if you had some speakers, but now, you know, those things are absolute necessity, especially if you're an online learner. So those are the things that we want to know, that the course technology is up to date. So if we're telling students to get a statistics program like SPSS, are we asking them to get the most recent version? Are we staying with state-of-the-art information and technology so that our students are prepared for the world outside when they're finished with their respective programs? And then are their policies clear, you know, about viruses and responsible use of technology? Those things need to be available as well. Learner support, and these are the things that kind of move out of the alignment phase, is, you know, is there support for learners? Tech support, institutional policies, academic and student reports, are those things articulated in the course? And then most importantly, accessibility and usability. There have been a number of lawsuits over the years because students who are disabled or learn differently are not able to get all of the information that their peers are getting from a course. So we want to look at stuff about the ease of navigation, which is one of the reasons why we chose Canvas, is information about accessibility easily provided, because every university and institution has or should have by law some type of accessibility office and resources for students who need that resource. And then are there different means of access? So for example, if I put a video up of a module overview, I also make sure I put up a PDF, because the PDF will contain the audio transcript. So if somebody's looking at the video and they're hearing impaired, they can download the transcript or read the transcript right on the screen while the video is playing. And we want to make sure that we have a nice, clean design that makes things easy to read using the properly contrasting colors. And those things that we do already in instructional design. We work to make sure that the screens are easy to read, and, you know, the contrast is good so that people with vision impairments don't have a difficult time. And then is multimedia easy to use? Because a lot of times, you know, institutions have shied away from using video chats and things like that. So that was another reason why we chose Canvas. We wanted to see how easy would it be for the student to use that type of technology to execute a particular assignment. Woo! So that's a lot. Do you guys have any questions about those standards? All right, we're going to move along because we've got a lot of slides here. There are also annotations, because sometimes you want to know at a deeper level what's being asked here. I know that when I review an online course, I've got those annotations sitting right next to me because they do a really deep dive and explain what that particular standard's looking for. It even can give me sample feedback that I can tweak or share with the person whose course I'm reviewing, or the department whose courses I'm reviewing, to let them know specifically where there may be needs for improvement meeting a particular standard. You know, might come really close, or they might barely pass the standard, but it would be really great if you could add this. This will make that particular component of your course exceptional. And it helps with the course revision. So, you know, when a person's being told, hey, you know, your outcomes are not aligning with your assignments, they're given a specific reason, you know, why they did not pass, then they can go and look at their assignments and see, oh, okay, how can I reword my assignment to meet this outcome? Sometimes rewriting the outcome, the module learning outcome, as long as it does not take it out of alignment with a course learning outcome or program learning outcome, is also a solution. Because while the assignment may meet the course learning outcome, it doesn't meet the modular outcome. So maybe you'll say, write a paper, but you had them do a presentation. So you might have to change that module learning outcome to create a presentation. And that will happen sometimes when a course gets revised. You know, they'll be allowed to change module learning overviews simply because the assignments are going to be changing. So it's going to be really important to make sure that you give the proper recommendations so they know what to do when they're doing a revision. It's a very insightful way of adding information so the reviewer can make more detailed recommendations. And people want to know, what is alignment? I've been talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And this is, like I said, the most important part to me of Quality Matters. It's making sure that your courses meet your institutional and program learning outcomes. Why is this important? Because those are part of the curriculum map that help to meet accreditation requirements. So if your courses are not meeting the outcomes of your program, then they're not teaching the things that you need to know in your program in order for you to graduate and have mastered that information in that program. So for example, you know, there are programs like BCBA at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, where in order for them to be certified, they have to spend a certain amount of hours meeting a certain outcome. If we don't teach a course that provides those hours to meet that outcome, then that student can't be certified. So there's also things with nursing programs. There's even, you know, none of our affiliates do it, but there's even cosmetology, you know, taught online, certain things. You know, you can't do the hands-on stuff, but you have to make sure that what you're assigning in that particular course is meeting the level of hours they're going to need to be certified. So it's really important to make sure that your outcomes are in place before any assignment is written, making sure that the course is teaching exactly what it is supposed to teach, so that when you are reviewed for accreditation and you're looking at a particular program, you can review that program's content and be confident that that program is meeting all of its courses are meeting the outcomes that they need to. And if you don't meet outcomes, that puts your accreditation in jeopardy. So that's why it's really important that you know what alignment is. A lot of people know that there are institutional and program outcomes or objectives, depending on your institution, but they don't know how that connects with the classes that they teach. And so this program helps go from the top down to make sure that your courses overall are meeting the objectives or outcomes of your institution. A lot of times people don't understand what a measurable outcome is. For example, the word understand. You can't measure understanding, but you can measure if someone is assessing something properly, or if they are ranking something properly, or if they are discriminating properly, whether they're generating something properly. At the doctoral level, you're to be creating, okay? And so these are the action verbs that you would use for creating or synthesis or evaluating a model, okay? Or evaluating something. So often at the doctoral level, you're doing a dissertation. And both of those things, they involve creativity, which is a new idea, theory, hypothesis, and then evaluating the current research that is available on which you base your decision, as well as the research that you do yourself. So that's why it's very important that when we have a doctoral level class that we use these action verbs in our outcomes for the work that they're going to do. Definitely specifically in the course learning outcomes and in the module learning outcomes. A short note on outcomes: often the program level outcomes can't be changed when a course is being reviewed. And that's because they're set up when a course goes under accreditation. Or an institution goes under accreditation. So their program learning outcomes, they don't move. However, course learning outcomes and module learning outcomes can always be revised to make them better. Learning outcomes are outcomes that pertain to the entire course. They're very high level outcomes for that specific course. The module learning outcomes are how are those assignments going to meet those course learning outcomes? How are the assignments? So those are drilled down. They're very specific, and they are most definitely driven, both of those types of outcomes, by the type of action verbs that you use. When I first started working at TCSES, I came from a corporate background. There were no levels to outcomes. They just had to be measurable. And I had a program, I think it was Dr. Davis, and she was like, oh, no. These are undergraduate outcomes. And that's when somebody told me, hey, Bloom's also breaks this apart by level. And I was like, wow, I never knew that. So I pay very close attention to this when somebody's designing a course. Why? Because QM pays very close attention to this. It measures you and measures your course on, is it at the right level for the student? So often I'll get a master's or a doctoral level class and they're down at the bottom where the bachelor's level is. They talk about understanding the meaning, comprehension, but the actual words that they use are not understanding. When you can demonstrate understanding, that's how you make understanding measurable. So they can summarize, they can predict, they can describe, they can define. But when you're getting at the master's level, now we're putting this stuff to use. So you're applying it and you're analyzing the basics that you've learned. And then at the doctoral level, you're creating and evaluating current systems. You're creating your own and evaluating current systems. So please always consider the level when you're making outcomes for a course.
Hey,
so I just kind of, go ahead, Sean.
There's a good question I think that you could
Okay.
address there by Bonnie.
Oh, I didn't. You know what? I've got that window reduced. I'm sorry. Let me pull that down. I could hardly even see it.
That's my job.
I don't know if.
I think.
Okay. Here, let me look. Okay. Oh, I've got this open now. So let me look. Is it possible to use QM without going for the certification? Yes.
The questions you posted at 129. I did respond to those other questions. The last.
Oh, you did. I apologize. Okay. Oh, how it's practically implemented. Okay, so what we've been doing is, we've been looking at it from like a casual thing. It's quite different when you take it to QM and have them evaluate it. So, like for example, a TCSPP, and that's one of our affiliates. We as designers have to meet those quality matters things in our courses. So when we're reviewing a course map, I'm going to say, and then this is like, for example, this is when somebody, if you see on the screen, they give me a PLO and then they write a CLO. And I look at it and I say, okay, this can be done a little bit better, and I give a suggestion. I'll show you the suggestion in a little bit. So at the course level at the course map level, we're looking at outcomes. We're making sure the assignments meet the outcomes. So if somebody says we're going to bake a cake in this unit and they make a pie, Okay, yes, and a PLO is a program learning outcome, a CLO is a course learning outcome, and an MLO is a module learning outcome. And modules can be either a week for online courses or span 2 weeks in on-ground and blended courses. Okay, and so each unit or each module may have a couple of units, but we use the module learning outcomes to align them to the assignment. So that's one of the things that we do. We look at the technology. So if somebody hasn't done anything like module overviews that we turn into videos, if they don't have any synchronous sessions, if they don't have anything visual, such as things that you can do graphically on the internet, like clickable things that provide information, videos, anything that gets people out of just reading the screen. Those are the ways that we practically make sure. In addition, how we chose our system. We chose Canvas because it was much better for the disabled and people who learn differently. And so those are the practical things that we're doing. Rubrics, we didn't have them before. You know, very few programs had rubrics. Now at Chicago School of Professional Psychology, all the programs that I review for, I have to have a rubric for every assignment type. So I need to have a discussion board rubric, I need to have a written assignment rubric, a presentation rubric, and sometimes we design them, and I advise this for the entire program standard. Now, if the instructor has a different type of assignment or the SME creates a different type of assignment, they can create a rubric for that specific assignment. And then we review those rubrics to make sure that the student understands what they have to do in the assignment. So those are some of the practical ways we do it. Does that answer your question for you, Bonnie? Or if there's anything else I can add to that, I will be more than happy to answer for you. But I'm hoping that that is that helps to give a little bit more information. Okay, so excuse me, if somebody brings me a course map, or we always start off with, and I'll show you this form. I created this with Paula. Oh, why is Paula's last name escape me today? But I created an outcomes chart with a SME, and it works so wonderfully because it helps you see the alignment between a program learning outcome, a overall course learning outcome, and then a module learning outcome. So what I do is I look at, you know, what is the program learning outcome they want to meet with this course learning outcome? Now they're talking about writing and reading clearly using APA, speaking articulately about the study of psychology. And this is an undergrad psychology course, so it also has to align with an APA goal. Okay. And so and we make sure that from the beginning when we created the program learning outcomes. So they gave me this particular outcome, asking me to analyze and explain a rationale for inclusive early education and public policy using peer-reviewed articles in APA format. And I was like, okay, but how can we make it align? It meets this, but how can we make it very clear that it's meeting this program learning outcome? And so a couple of the things that I've put in here is research, analyze, and explain a rationale. You see I crossed out the S for inclusive early education and public policy using peer review articles. So you know, definitely letting them know, hey, you're going to have to research this, analyze, and explain, because that particular part wasn't really part of the original CLO. So those are the types of changes sometimes we'll make. If I was to even do this some more, I would, and if I drill down, and we're going to look at that in just a minute, this then goes into the assignment. So how do you do this? How do you analyze, research, and explain? And so we made sure that each of the module learning outcomes that now drive the assignment that the student's going to be doing in the course, we have something here that meets analyzing. the early intervention movement and early childhood inclusive programs for children. That is specific to that course and specific to that assignment. So this might be an early childhood education course, but that course may not be all about interventions. It might be about other things. And so then we also want to make sure, okay, so we've covered one part of that CLO. Then the second one would be to use research to investigate and discuss the legislation designed to prevent developmental disabilities in children. So that's something different. That would actually lead to a discussion board through their investigation, through their reading. So that's why those words are used there. So that person knows that they're going to be investigating this information and they're going to be asked to discuss it in one form or another. And in this particular situation, we used an online discussion forum. And then the last MLO for this particular CLO was in accordance with APA style, so that matches rolling back up into that PLO of using APA format. Use research to investigate and discuss federal legislation as it results to the Individuals with Disabilities Act. And now you can see how that breaks down individually per assignment or several assignments within the module, how it goes into real detail to align to the general course learning outcome and the even more general program learning outcome. And I know that's a lot to bite, so I want to make sure that you guys get that part. So if there's any other questions about that, please just feel free to ask them now. I want to make sure that this is because alignment is so important. It's okay. It's for modular or learning outcome, it depends on the school. Because Canvas uses the nomenclature module, we call it a module learning outcome. Now, if that's incorrect English and that needs to be changed, maybe we should. But so it may be at your school, it may be called modular learning outcome. But in general, and we use the model from TCSPP, we work with the affiliates, and I think it's a decision made by the chairs whether they change that nomenclature or not. But for us, it's module. And that means in that module, in that week or span of 2 weeks, those particular outcomes are driven, they drive the assignments for that module. Okay? And I want to go back, Bonnie, you mentioned something about who's chosen. Well, the auditors are chosen by people who know QM well. They don't have to necessarily be QM certified, but when you go and you send courses to QM, you are going to have QM certified people, and that's through their professional development program where you take a series of courses. And then when you, so it will say that it passed Quality Matters. For us at an institution level, we can do that with just having the knowledge of the rubric. However, when you want to get QM certification, you do have to have people who are certified reviewers, and there's a program that you go through, and they are involved as well. But it's always certified reviewers if you want to get Quality Matters to put their stamp of approval on things. Any other questions? So when the person sent the original MLOs, we did a little bit of revision. And we changed the research because we wanted to take this passive voice out and make it active for the students. Okay, yes, in accordance with APA style, but we know that they have to follow APA style, but what are they supposed to be doing for that module learning outcome? What is it going to be clear for the student to know exactly what they're supposed to do? Is it pretty much a given based on the PLO that they're going to do APA, but what are they going to do to meet that? What are the physical things they're going to do with APA style? So those things were revised simply to make them more active so that the student was very clear about what they had to do in that particular assignment. Okay, it was just too redundant to state again. So once again, that's a Quality Matters thing. That's one of those little things that kind of sneaks up on you because it's like, oh, it says that the grading policies and standards have to be clear. So here's another example of how you can practically meet that standard, because you got to be clear on the modular learning outcomes to know how you're going to be graded. And this is how we did it with the BA program. We designed a modular learning outcomes chart, which I know that TCSPP uses in their SME 101 course now, that helps designers and well, the SMEs and the chairs make sure that the outcomes they've set up for the class before they've even written a single assignment for the course aligns completely with what the program is supposed to teach. And so that's what we did in research methods. We looked at the institutional goals, the APA goals that worked with that institutional goal. We looked at the program learning outcomes that were designed, and so those outcomes may show up in any course of the program, but these two columns here are specific to the course. So using traditional and online libraries to find research, you may not see that CLO in a different course, and it might have a different number. And then you see how they use the Boolean search method, how to manipulate keyword searches. It all rolls back to using online libraries, and we even go so far as to say what unit it is being taught in. So this is really nice, especially when people are working on curriculum maps as well, to have this learning outcomes chart. Okay, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Assignments, materials, are we having them do something that we would have done 30 years ago? Or are we using the most current texts available, the most advanced technology available, because the internet, we didn't have the internet. I used to joke, I still do with my teenage daughter. I'm like, I had to walk to the library and use microfiche and the card catalog to get stuff that you could sit in your room and do. I walked that mile in the snow. And so we want to make sure that when we are doing these things that we are getting that stuff for our students. They deserve it. We want to make sure that the instructional materials do meet what we're asking them to learn. We can't have a chapter, say, on different brain theories and be doing something completely different in the assignments for the week. So, do the assignments match the instructional materials, whatever they are, whether they're readings, videos, whatever. This is another thing that's really important. Quality matters. Make sure that we properly cite things. We're all so big on plagiarism until it's time for us to list our own sources. And so often we have to go back, and I have to say this means, hey, I know you just say this is such and such book, chapter, whatever, but we actually need to have the APA format written out for each reading or resource for each week. It's part of the requirements, but also if we're asking our students to do it, we should be doing it as well. And not just that, the more they see it, the more they become used to how it's formatted. So that's why we ask for that, but it's definitely a requirement of Quality Matters. And that the different types of materials are varied, because remember, we've got people that learn differently across the board. We also have, people who don't test well, but they write well. So a course that has just, select, one multiple choice or things like that, that may not be the best assessment for that student. That student may do better if they're writing a paper. You got other students that test extremely well and don't like writing papers. So how can we make our assignments varied in a course so that people can demonstrate their knowledge in different ways? It also provides variety in the course. The standard setup for a lot of our courses is discussion board, written assignment, discussion board, written assignment. And we're trying to come out of that, but because there are so many other things you can do. You can do quizzes, you can do midterms, you can do finals, you can do even documentary analysis, especially in the case of the statistics courses, the mathematical problems that they have to do. Presentations. There are a lot of different ways to measure whether a student has met the outcome for a course. And so we're really working very hard to do that, especially when it comes to engagement and active learning methods. You guys have any other questions? Okay. Engagement. Making someone feel like they're right there, or at least pinging that part of the brain where they're actively communicating or receiving information that's not simply written text. So webinars, online office hours, virtual worlds. There was this one course that they were giving in, I think it was evacuation. I had a friend who owned this online learning company, and they were doing for Children's Hospital in Chicago, they used Second Life, I believe that's the name of it, where it was like a video game, but it was showing them how to do emergency procedures. So things that we now think, and they call it gamification, that we used to think were video games and just for fun, can now be used as real practical, real world demonstrations, and students can go and be actively involved in learning rather than simply reading a list of policies and procedures on a web page. And so we use software that facilitates interactions and collaborations. I believe across all of our affiliates, we have a GoToMeeting license, which students can meet online synchronously, and that means all at the same time with their professors. And you can use your webcams, you can use your microphones, you can share the screen like we're doing here. This is GoToWebinar, as a matter of fact. You can work on things together. Also, like Google Docs and things like that, where wikis and things like that, where people collaborate together to do particular assignments, creates that engagement, creates that feeling of community. Some other things you can do to get students more engaged are the animations and simulations and games I talked about before. Discussion tools with an automatic notification for read or unread, so did somebody read that? Did somebody understand that? Do they do a survey? Do they do a quick check, self-check? You can design, we use several programs to design clickable interactive tests and things to make sure that the student is comprehending what's being taught in the unit, and that could be automatically graded, one less thing for the instructor to grade. But that's something that, like I said, these things do involve time, and they can add significant time to a course, because we have to get creative and use a lot of advanced tools in order to create these things. I made these flashcards actually in PowerPoint, and then I turned them into a video. So that's another thing that you can do. Flashcards, especially for medical terms and things like that, they're excellent. Flashcards aren't just for 5-year-olds anymore. And the last one, and I can show you the engagement if we have time, because it was in our BA 340 class. But the last thing, most importantly, and we've discussed this at length, is making sure that we have multiple ways to communicate information for students, that there's audio and video alternative, and that things are easily read, and that they accommodate screen readers, and that say for example, our PowerPoints, when we turn them into PDFs, they're clean. So what we do in our department, also, I create all the standard templates and make sure we keep them really clean and unjumbled, because I've gone to some conferences and seen some online courses, and it's not that the content is bad, it's that the design doesn't provide easy readability. If you've taken a look at the slides here that I've made, I'm not using all of the fancy PowerPoint backgrounds and all of those different colors and animations and things, because I want to keep it as clean as possible. So you can keep it clean, it can look professional, but it should be taking people who learn differently in mind. And so now I can take your questions, or I can demonstrate to you some of the more advanced technology we use in our courses for engagement.
Yeah, feel free to pull something up, Tracy. If you
Okay.
would like to be unmuted, go ahead and click the raised hand Oh, there she is.
Yeah, this is my look-alike. So we're gonna go here and we're gonna go to BA 340, and I'm hoping everything will work well today. You know how it always works when you have these live things. So, and the reason, like I said, we call it module learning overview. Some examples of meeting quality matters in our master template. You know, the students introduced to the course information. They're shown where to find things. We give image credit where, for if we use somebody else's images. We tell students how to get help. This is all right on our landing page. The instructor information is here. We're hitting so many quality matters things just with the front pages of our courses and technology requirements. So that's a lot of the mandatory things that are in that first standard. We make sure that that is built into the courses so you don't have to worry about that. So here's that practical application. So you go into your modules, we told students how to get help, how to get started, the syllabus with the grading policies, and then the policies of the school. All of that's there. The learning outcomes, they're articulated here. They're required readings. In Quality Matters, we're required to say whether or not something is optional or required. Our attendance policies, introduction. So the professor would introduce themselves here. The students would introduce themselves there. And that's where we take attendance in the first week. We talk about GoToMeeting because that's where we actually do our synchronous learning. So for example, we've got the flashcards here, and this is simply a PowerPoint, and I'm hoping that this will come up. Yay. And I'm not sure why that's not coming up, but sometimes that's because of the browser. Yeah, let me try here and use Firefox because, let me go back because I'm thinking we have the option for both. But if not, sometimes if students use one browser, and this is one of the things that does come up, is that when you're using a browser, it may not work. So this is not working with HTML5 and Chrome, and that is something, unfortunately, that we cannot help. But I've got it set up on the back end that we have storyline interactions, so I can actually go into the flashcards here, and I can choose the HTML file, and that should come up. Please use the flashcards to review the following terms. Click Next to move through the flashcards. Click Previous to go back to review a term and its definition. A link to a downloadable PDF of these flashcards can be found on the course files page. Now in the next screen, and like I said, this is just a screenshot with some audio that I did in PowerPoint. And so, like I said, we have backup files for things when there's a browser issue, but usually just changing this to like Firefox, it should work. Because the people who make the browsers change the way they do things all the time, sometimes as technology, we have to have different workarounds. So when we revise this course, we're going to put this, I think, in a SCORM shell, and that's going to keep that from happening. We found that out through doing research. So then we have the term, we have the volume, and then we come here and a Boolean operator is any operation that can increase or decrease a search outcome. So they have audio, they have video, they even have a way to get those flashcards and download them. So that's some of the very practical ways we could put some of these things that I discussed into use. We have quizzes. So if a student wanted to take a quiz, this quiz is where if you downloaded a document. So she's actually, in this particular case, Paula used a downloadable document because there were a lot of things they had to do in that quiz. But if they were to do an online quiz, that would automatically be scored by the system. We have ways to set those up in Canvas as well. And so when we're talking about measurement, for example, I believe when I pull up this discussion, the student will be able to look at the rubric, which was attached. Okay, unfortunately that link doesn't work anymore, but in addition, and that's something we'll need to fix, this rubric is built into the speed grader so that the instructor has that rubric there for them to see. We also put things in multiple places, so if you do have a problem like that broken link, you can go back to modules and you should be able to pull that up under readings or other rubrics. This one, not done. So I apologize about that. But on a lot of our courses, those things are listed. So it's 1:59. That's about all I have. I might be in the wrong master for this because I'm sure that was updated. But if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them. In fact, we can stay on a little bit afterwards to answer any questions that you have. Are there any questions, Sean?
I'll go ahead and stop the recording, but I want to thank everybody for your time and attention, and this will be made available on YouTube momentarily. And thank you all for coming.